Ladies, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Let me introduce you to the
Doing good.
audience. Today, we're on episode 9 already. Time flies. And we are talking about co-parenting with Raquel and Vanessa. So, ladies, introduce yourselves and let's get right into it because I am excited about this one.
Hello, hi, I'm Raquel, and thank you so much for having us on the show. And let's get ready. Let's do this.
Let's talk about it.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. Thank you for having me as well. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, co-parenting, with social media, you see so many disastrous stories. You hear some good stories, but I want to get a really good perspective as to, and I'm going to share my experiences with you as well, but I want to get a really good perspective on how you deal with co-parenting and how that goes for you, the good, the bad, maybe the ugly, and then how we could really give people, and that's one thing we like to do, is give people a alternative to whereas they think that they can't do co-parenting, but you can, to help out not just the parents who are adults, but the children who really suffer from all of our ignorance and immaturity sometimes as well. Now, tell me, Vanessa, how many children do you have?
So my story is a little bit complex. So I was actually a teen mom.
Okay.
So I had my daughter when I was 15. I am now
Okay.
32.
Okay.
And now my daughter is 16. So when I met my husband, he was actually a teen dad himself. And his son was 7 years old. And my daughter was 7 when we first met.
Okay.
Then, we dated and we eventually got married and then had our own. And now she's 4. So in our house, we have 2 teenagers and a 4-year-old.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So co-parenting, I feel like with my daughter's dad was a little bit more complex. We were kids in a sense.
Right.
And so, you got to grow up with your kid and with the partner. And
Right.
Fortunately with him, he's not in the picture at all,
Okay.
which I would hope that one day he does present a healthy version of himself and he's able to establish a relationship with her later down the line, maybe be a better grandparent. Up to him if that's the case. But I feel like my co-parenting is with my son's mother, which is my
Okay.
stepson's mother. And because they were young as well, we all understand each other. And in the beginning, it wasn't too easy, but I think down the line, we figured out a way to all coexist together. And she was at my wedding. So
Oh, wow.
that's a little very different when people hear that, like, what?
Right. Well,
But it was years in the making, but I was happy that we were able to do that for the kids.
and it takes time and maturity as well. Like you said, you're a teenage mom. Your husband was a teenage dad. At that age, hell, we're not even living life yet. We have no clue what we're doing. We barely know how to write a check back then and pay a bill, let alone raise some children.
Yes. I try to tell them now, like, could you imagine being a parent right now?
Right. Oh no. Oh no.
No
It'd
way.
be crazy. It would be way too crazy. Now, Raquel, tell me a little bit about your story so we can hear yours as well.
So with myself, my son, he's now 10 years old. And when his dad and I got divorced, he was, I believe, 4 years old.
Okay.
So in the beginning, it was really hard. We never had to be separated at all. So that first week when we initially separated and I moved out, we already established that our son was going to be 1 week with me, mom, and 1 week with dad.
So you established that from the beginning.
Yeah, we started that
Okay.
since the beginning.
Okay.
And it was definitely challenging, and still, even now, even though it's been a couple of years, like, it's still definitely challenging, especially with him growing up. I mean, just the growing up in general. I mean,
Right,
he's
just
10,
overall.
so he's getting to that age where it's like he wants, like, they find out their own identity and
Right.
asks all these questions. And so having to be from one household to another,
It makes a difference.
it definitely makes a difference because dad has his own set of rules, mom has his own set of rules. And then I'm blessed that my mom and my parents really have been very helpful
Okay,
in the
good.
fact that where he goes to school at is where my parents live.
Okay.
So when we separated, we kept him at the same school, and that was basically the only place where we kind of kept it. We didn't want to change his school, so that's
Right.
like the only thing that's been the same.
That
The
makes a
school,
difference.
his friends, because everything else changed. His household changed, where he lived, everything else changed. So it's definitely been, it
A little
hasn't been
challenging.
easy, yeah, but it's definitely has a lot to do with how one is. His dad and I always said, even if we don't get along, we have to at least make it amicable for our son, because
That's
it's not fair to, like you mentioned, you hear all of these crazy stories,
right.
and even though we might be spiteful for each other in the beginning, we've actually now have a really good relationship,
That's good.
and we're even able to like text and you know
Communicate.
communicate, whether if it's can I have him next weekend
You
or
can make adjustments and it doesn't become an issue
yeah,
to where
yeah.
everybody's fussing. Now, let me just say this. I've met your son. So he's a very
Mhm.
well-mannered young man. We were at one of your pop-ups together and we had a
Mhm.
great time. He was kind of shy at first, but then he opened up and I said, get 2 tacos. And once he opened up, he got 6 tacos. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm saying you are doing and you have done a great job in that regard. And one thing you said that I want to
Thank
touch
you.
on that
Mhm.
even Vanessa brought up as well, in the maturity stage that we all have to go through, because we
Yeah.
all have emotions from being away from that partner, whether it be good, bad, whether it be the man's fault, the woman's fault, whether we cheated, whether we just argue, whatever the case may be, we have to be mature enough for the child. And you don't hear that a lot these days. The fact that both of you all said that in
Mhm.
order to make it better for not only your current relationship, because Raquel, you're engaged as well, your current
Yeah.
relationship,
Mhm.
but you made it better for the children or that child, and that's a real good thing on your part.
Most definitely. It definitely takes a lot maturity and self-growth and a lot of work behind one in order to get where you're at. Like it's not just from one day to the next. Like
Right.
you have to do the work and you have to really want to have that co-parenting style and
And put
be
in the work.
yeah, but I mean, back when it first started, I mean, trust me, there were days where I wanted to be that crazy. I could have been that crazy woman and,
Good thing you weren't.
done a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, it's for our kids,
Good
and
job.
our kids see everything. And I never, till this day, once have ever told my son, "Oh, your dad this or your dad that," like anything,
And that's really
because
good.
eventually kids see everything when it comes.
Yeah, and they're impressionable.
Yeah,
That's what we forget. We forget how intelligent our children are. That we think
very.
that we're hiding from it. And this is something I've touched on in past episodes of the podcast, to where men and women in a household, one person may be cheating or one person may be just not feeling the other person, or we try to hide or think that we're shunning the children out of our issues by telling stories about sleeping on a couch in different scenarios. However, the children know there's no love here. There's no chemistry here.
Mhm.
We know that you guys that are breaking up, we see dad or mom sneak on the phone or how they answer the phone. They're not oblivious to that.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that we have to keep in mind. But I want to go to Vanessa really quickly. Vanessa, now how long have you and your husband been married?
5 years this
5 years. Okay.
Well,
So in
actually, it's a new year, so
the new year. So
we
going
just
on 6.
celebrated in December our
Okay.
first year. Yeah.
All right. So you 5 going on 6 and 100 more.
Yes, we've
So
been
okay,
together
good.
for about 7 years total, and then 5 years married.
Okay, wonderful. In that process, as you said, he has a teenage son, and you having a son, how was that initially with the mom? Because sometimes even when men and women are separated for a long period of time, when they get with somebody else, that person, I think, just a natural emotion is going to feel a certain type of way. With you having your son and the father not being present at this time, hopefully, like you said, he'll come back at some point. How did that dynamic work before you had your youngest child?
I have a daughter. So
Your youngest
the
daughter, okay.
Yeah, so the daughter's mine, and the son is my stepson. And
Okay.
in the beginning, there was a little bit of turbulence, a little bit with his mom, especially because Christopher, my son, I say my son, we don't do step in
I
our
love it. I like that. We're
we
on the same
are a
page.
family. But I also
Yes.
knew to never overstep my boundaries and make it clear with her that I wasn't going to come in and try to take that mom role. And
Okay.
me and my husband, we looked at it like we wanted to have our selfish year. So when we first started dating, the first year, we didn't introduce our kids. We wanted to know by the end of the year if this is something that was serious.
That makes sense.
And so at the end of the year, strike on midnight, that's when we decided to make it official. So he had a conversation with his mom. And she was a little bit apprehensive at first. We did have a phone conversation, and I assured her that I wasn't coming in to overstep any boundaries.
Okay.
But Christopher is just like a loving boy. Like, and he's a teenager now, so he's not a little boy. But at the time when I met him, he was 7.
Okay.
And he just loved love and loved me and loved my family, that he instantly wanted to start calling me mom.
Wonderful.
And his mom wasn't really too happy about that, and which I understood.
Right.
So, but I also didn't want to tell him he couldn't either. So I did have a conversation about it after the fact to her, and I was like, listen, me and my husband's name is Anthony. Me and Anthony are planning to get married, and this is something serious for us, and we don't believe in anything step here. So I don't want to tell Christopher that he can't call me that, but I also don't want you to make him feel bad for calling me that either, because he would come home crying and upset because his mom was upset at him for, calling me mom. So I think going through that kind of just made a bad taste in her mouth.
Okay.
Now that I have a 4-year-old, and if me and my husband were to split, I completely understand her perspective. It would be very hard for me to see my 4-year-old daughter calling another woman mom, especially at a young age, or even in Raquel's circumstances with her son being so young. I'm sure it would be extremely hard for that. But now on the other side of it, I think that she appreciates the fact that he loves me like a second mom, and that we have that bond, because when I was able to have her come to our wedding and we did have that conversation, she thanked me for loving her son as much as I do. And it was a way for us to bond together.
And that makes sense, because so many children get abused when they go to other households.
Oh, definitely.
So many children get disrespected by that other parent that's not there, or they feel like they're not part of the family, or they've been negated away from all the activities. So what you did was very responsible and very good. Is his mom in a relationship, or is she remarried?
She's currently in a relationship, and she just had a new baby this year. And
so that helps to balance some
a
things
lot more
out.
Siblings over there. I think he has 5 total on her side of additional kids. And so he has a big blended family over there as well, because there are different fathers as well. I think now, because she's co-parenting with her,
she understands better.
With her current partner, she understands. She understands now, because that partner has kids, and that partner's ex is not happy about her being and so now she uses our relationship as an example to her current partner. Like,
she's coming to you for advice.
More like Vanessa and Anthony. Like, we should all be able to coexist together.
Can we just all get along?
At the end of the day, it's for the kids.
Right,
really
absolutely. 100%.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Childhood goes like this. Like, you only have your child for a few years.
My son just turned 21. He's been gone for 2 years. So I've been an empty nester. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell am I going to do now that all the children are gone? I completely understand that. Raquel, you are engaged. You'll be getting married soon. How has that relationship been with your fiance now, or before he became your fiance, and your son?
Since the very beginning, Jesse and my fiance, Albert, they had a really good relationship.
Okay.
So it's never been something where he's tried to, they met and they instantly clicked.
Okay, good.
My son was a lot younger, and my son's very loving, and everyone he meets is his friend. So for him in the beginning, though, as far as knowing that Albert and I were dating, my son was still in his head was like, well, Mom, when are you and Dad
getting back together?
Gonna get back together.
Right.
Mom, when he was younger, once in a while he'll still say it, but he does know that Albert and I are getting married, and we had a conversation with him when we got engaged. We did tell him, like, look, Jesse, this is what happened, and tell me how you feel. Like, I sat down and talked to him because I wanted to know how he felt about it. And he's like, well, Mom, if you love him, then I'm happy for you. So that made me feel good, because, the last thing I wanted to do was, him feel a certain way about the whole situation.
Absolutely. No, I was going to say, I think that a lot of points that you are pointing out are things that we don't do as adults, because you had a conversation with your son. And oftentimes in the dating stage, even Vanessa, you said you and your now husband waited a year in order to talk to your children. A lot of men and women bring children around immediately. And then the children get disappointed. And they're like, well, damn, wasn't that Tyrone? Well, wasn't that James? Wasn't that Leroy? Wasn't that wasn't that Samantha and Portia? Like, what the hell is going on here? And the fact that you are taking your time, you're asking the children how they feel, you're explaining it to them, because it's hard when you have a child, male or female, who are loving towards both parents. And to see them split, they don't always understand. Now, once they get older and they get into relationships, like, well, I see what the hell my parents went through. But until they get to that point, it's difficult. And I didn't mean to cut you out, but I wanted to just really highlight the fact that both of you are taking time to make sure everything goes well, and we can give this to the public so maybe they can make adjustments so their co-parenting works as well.
Yeah, and in the beginning, when my fiance and I were first dating with my son's dad, that was really hard for him. He didn't care about the fact that we were dating, but he cared about the fact that my son being part of this new relationship between myself and Albert.
Right.
So he had that conversation with me saying, I don't want someone else to, like, I'm always going to be his dad. I don't want Jesse calling someone else dad.
Right.
So that was a very, big thing. And I told him, I'm like, Albert has 2 grown sons. He's not here to take your son away. But I understood where he was coming from, because like Vanessa mentioned, I wouldn't want, if his dad started dating and some other woman came in and he started calling someone else mom, like, to me, I'm like, no, wait, I'm your mom. Right. So I understand that fact that he didn't want someone else to be called dad. But in that aspect, Albert, he's he has 2 grown children of his own. They're out and about doing their own thing. And then, here comes a 4 or 5-year-old.
Starting all over.
Yeah, like kind of starting over. But I'm just like, okay, well, you experienced all this now, so I need your help. I mean, now that Jesse's 10, it's kind of like, okay, well, oh my God, what do I do? Right. So he's already been through that. Yeah. So he's been through that. And, he's never been one to overstep his boundaries.
Okay.
He sees what I do or what I say, and sometimes I'll be like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have done that. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I need to calm down. So there's that aspect. Now it's like we're Jesse's dad and my fiance now, where before they wouldn't be able to say hi or anything, and now they shake hands or whatnot, and they're able to have a little bit of, oh, hey, how are you? So it's come a long way, and it's something that I've ever pushed. I've never been like, oh, you have to go talk to him or this. Right. It's something that I guess between men like you guys,
it takes time. Men have an ego, and let me tell you, I'm just gonna break it down. It's the podcast, and don't come for me. That's all I can say. But in our immaturity, sometimes as men, in our ignorance, we always feel that you're ours. Even though you're gone, even though we may have done something wrong, we always feel like you are still our woman. And emotionally, it takes time for a man to wrap his mind around this woman leaving and being with another man. Because men, at the end of the day, despite social media and music and the ignorance that we see, men know how delicate and how precious a woman is, in particular a woman's body. And when a man has to see and feel and think about his woman with somebody else, it drives him crazy. So when I see your man, I'm like, to hell with him. He can run this fade. What you want to do? So it becomes that ego. But at the end of the day, when we start taking the emotion out of it and we understand what's going to happen, we're not going to be together again, then it's best, like you said, we shake hands. How you doing, man? Hey, did you catch the game? Thank you very much. And then the children see that, and it makes them more receptive to be okay with going to each other's household. So I want to give you that perspective from a man.
I kind of wanted to chime in on that with the child referring to the other partner as mom and dad.
Okay.
Now that Chris is a teenager, he doesn't call me mom. He calls me Vanessa. But when he talks to other people, he doesn't say, this is my stepmom. He says, this is my mom. mom.
That's
But I
good.
think that when kids are younger, like around the time when we met, they feel the energy from both houses.
Mhm.
And
Right.
they see, and as much as kids, they don't think that they mean to be manipulative, but they just want that extra attention. So,
Absolutely.
like, well, if you're going to be split up, then I'm going to call her mom then, kind of
Right.
thing. And I just think that with kids, when they see a dynamic split, like their parents, you know, they internalize that, and they act out in certain ways. And I think that, so I could see how your ex Raquel could be like, no, like he's not
Right.
calling him dad. And
Yeah.
I don't think that your son maybe would want to, but I think maybe if he's seen them bickering with each other, he might want to, like, you know, cling more to him, just because that's what kids do.
Yeah.
Kids see
Absolutely.
toxicity or any type of, and they cling to it, any type of negative emotion, and they cling to it. So that's what I really wanted to lay down, that foundation. Like, I don't want us to be toxic. I don't want it to be
Right.
like that. I want it to be smooth. And if it happens naturally, great. And I don't want them to feel uncomfortable if that's truly what he wants to do. But now that he's older, it was a phase.
Right. And they grew out of that. And not only that, children are smart, like we talked about. They know how to go to each household and say, well, you know, dad lets me do that. Oh, you're not gonna let me have any candy? Well, you know, my other mama let me have candy. Like,
Yes.
wait, what? You know, so they
Yeah.
they know how to work both aspects to their advantage, no matter what happens or where they go. But the other part that I really admire having both of you all on, because I haven't heard either one of you say anything about speaking bad about that other parent. And that makes a big difference, because sometimes culturally, even in our culture, we out loud speak, your daddy ain't shit. Your mama ain't shit. Your mama's a hoe. Your daddy's this. He didn't pay this money. And that, even in that frustration, the children shouldn't have to endure that. We should be mature enough to have a conversation on the phone, not yell. And I've been guilty of that a couple of times, where I had to really grow and be mature and look at my son's face or look at my daughter's face. But the one thing that I knew that when my relationships didn't work is that I've always had both my children. I never did the back and forth thing. I've always raised them from, my mom helped me a lot before she passed. She helped me a lot. Pretty much birth until the children graduated high school, went to college. I've had both the children. That is something I commend you both for, because you didn't say anything about that. And we need to let people know that you have to get over that emotion for the children. It's not about us at that point. It's for the children.
Those feelings were there, definitely. But I just think that, I don't know. I think my perspective is a little bit different. I was a teen parent, right? So I had a great household. I had great parents, and I made a decision. I made a split decision, and it changed my life forever. So I say this to my daughter now, that's 16 and dating, where I never would talk bad about her dad, because that's 50% of her. Like, he's half her. And regardless if he's here or gone, I don't want her to look at herself in the mirror and think that she's less than in any way because her dad is a certain way. So I refrained a lot from telling her anything until now. And I told her, I said that I would let her know pieces of information as she grew. So now that she's dating and we're allowing her to date, which is, believe me, I'm not right.
I already know. I already know. It comes so fast.
I'm not
I get
dumb
it.
either. And I know that if you don't allow it in an isolated way where you can observe it, they're going to do it behind your back.
Exactly.
And so now those conversations have to arise, like, okay, well, the taste and boy that you're choosing, and it's crazy, generational curses, they're so real. Your kids gravitate kind of towards the same person that you were attracted to. So I noticed that the little boy that she had presented to us, that they're no longer together, thank the Lord. But and he cheated on her, and it was hard, but I was happy that she felt that and removed herself from that, because it was this kid was a split image of her dad at that age and my age. And it was insane to me that she doesn't know much about her dad, because I didn't tell her all the negative things. But when this kid came to us, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, not only does he kind of look like him, like he has the flashy car, he you know, although the way he holds his demeanor, all of it just screamed her dad.
Wow.
And the cheating and the manipulation was the same way as her dad.
Wow.
And it was just insane that happened. So I had to tell her, you know, I went through this with your dad and we were young. And I don't blame him for that. Like, he probably is a different person now, hopefully. But I need you to be aware of the signs that you're not going down the same path because this is how you came.
Right.
And her dad was a cheater, unfortunately. And I felt like if I gave him something that everyone else was giving at that time, maybe I can get him to commit more. And then she came, and that's how she became existed, you know. And that's my fear, is that I don't ever want you to overly give yourself to somebody that's undeserving of it, and then you have a consequence, like a whole life being, you know, born, and you have to deal with it, because unfortunately I had to do it myself. And most people don't think that when they have a kid, that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a single mom completely with the person completely gone.
They think we're going to get some kind of help. Somebody would be somebody in the family, your grandmama, somebody's going to help me out here.
Yeah. And I had a great mom too, like you had mentioned, but my mom, she passed away in 2020, and she helped me all the way through up until then. And I think she was the big mold on the step. When Christopher came into the picture, that was her grandson. It did not matter. Like, and he took to her so well. And I want that for a relationship for my kids. Like, I want them to enter into a family and a relationship that doesn't care about the, you know, the dynamic and the craziness and who's, you know, it's just, we're family and we all love each other and we respect each other.
And that's what it's about. Let me ask you really quickly before we move forward. How did your daughter take with the breakup? I know you said she took it kind of hard, but do you think that she understood that aspect of it, and she knows moving forward what not to deal with or what to look for?
Yes, I do believe that. It was hard. It was really hard to see your daughter heartbroken.
Absolutely.
But she did it. She handled it better than me at that age. And that's what I tell her. I'm like, I don't want you to be anything like me. I want you to be better than me. I want you to surpass me. So we communicate till I'm blue in the face. That's one thing that I want her to say, is that my mom talked to me.
That's good.
My mom talked to me overly. But in the beginning, she did do an error. She forgave him for cheating, and she continued the relationship until it happened again. Right. And then she had came home and complete mess and told me about it. And I told her, I said, you know, you're not going to learn through what you haven't gone through. If you haven't gone through it, you don't have the tools. But now moving forward, if somebody comes into your life and treats you badly and cheats on you, you don't need to give them a second chance because you see the good and the potential in them. Like, because that was the whole thing. Well, I don't think that he's a bad person. No, he's not a bad person. He just didn't value you. Right. So why do you want to be in a relationship with someone that doesn't value you? Yeah. And so I think after she understood that and that aspect, she's on her I don't need anybody kind of thing right now. And I love that. And I love that because
she's on her Beyonce independence. I get it. That's good.
And she's turning, this year coming up is going to be her senior year. And I'm like, well, you have so much life. You have so much life ahead of you. Just enjoy high school. Don't even worry about dating.
Right. Enjoy yourself.
But it's culture. It's the culture, especially right now. Everyone is booed up. And
no, I get it. I have
the music in their AirPods.
Oh my goodness. You can't even go into it. It's ridiculous. I have a friend who her son was dating, and the son and girl, it was actually one of my clients, and they had broke up, and the son asked his mom, do you think we should go to counseling? She said, hell no, you 17 years, 17 years old. What do you mean you should go to counseling? It's not even an issue. Just go ahead and continue to move forward. So I get that part. It's so much. What I'd like to get into now is any suggestions and any thoughts that you can give to the public, and you can both give your opinion on what can make, because you all have it down packed. We need to put together an ebook and sell it for $5.99 and make both of you the author based on what you've told, because you have it down really well. But I see so much. I mean, I saw a video with the guy who brought the children to McDonald's. I don't know if you all saw that. It was viral. But then the mother said, well, no, you have to bring all the children to McDonald's. And they got into a big argument about that. Okay. And then I just saw one more recently where her husband said, I pay all the bills. And then the woman said, well, I pay half the bills, and the children are acting a fool in the background. You see so much stuff on social media, but you don't know what's real and what's not. But I know different scenarios as well that I've been through, and my friends and my cousins, my aunties have been through, to what can you give people from your mature state and your lessons that you've learned to really help them out so we can just be a better family and unit and community.
That video that you're talking about, the McDonald's one, I did see that. The father came and brought his son a Happy Meal. Child a Happy Meal, and not the siblings.
Correct.
And with that, I think in the father's aspect, I understand that he shouldn't have to provide for the entire house, especially if those kids aren't his kids.
Correct.
And that's kind of our dynamic here. Christopher has 5 other siblings, and Anthony only has Chris. So, I mean, I think that it would be a problem if every time he had bought Chris something, he would have to extend it out.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
I just think, like, don't be cruel. Like,
Right.
I think it's just a common decency. If you want to buy your son a Happy Meal and you want that, then go take him down the street to go eat it in the car. Don't drop it off to them so that way the kid can eat it in front of the other kids and not share. But I
Right.
don't think that it's the man's responsibility to have to buy the other siblings anything, because that's his only sole responsibility is that child.
That child. Correct.
And but I understood where that mom was coming from too, because how are you going to show up with something and
Right.
kids are sitting right there and
Right.
they're going to want it.
Right.
So it's either
Especially
don't
something
do
like
it
McDonald's.
at all, or do it and take them down the street so that way they can eat it in the car.
Give us some pointers. Give us some things that we can give to people that we can turn into viral clips to help these families that go through what you all haven't had a chance to go to, which is a blessing. And it really stands out where you don't say, Vanessa, because I've never had to co-parent with anyone, but I really hate the term and phrase of stepmother, stepfather, because if you're in the household and that parent is paying bills and helping, then yes, they're not your biological father, but they are a mother and a father because they're providing for you. And it just makes a difference.
Yes. I just think that step makes anybody feel less than. Like,
absolutely.
It's just kind of like, why does it even need to be established step? I think that if we're a family, we're coexisting. I think that if both parents are making the decision to blend the family together, I think that everyone should just be considered. If it's your child, then you're the child of the house.
Right.
All the children in the house. Not that is mine, but that one's my step one.
Right.
I just think that everyone should just be more respectful. But I think it all boils down to emotional maturity. It's either you have it or you don't.
Right.
And it takes time. And mothers that are struggling with it, I do understand, especially being in a situation of being cheated on from my daughter's dad. Like, I was young, granted, but that feeling, and you can't help, just like you were saying, how a man's perspective, like, you'll always be my woman.
Right.
For a woman, especially if you're no longer together, you'll always have some kind of emotional attachment to that ex-person. You had a child with them. You brought life into the world. You might not love them, but there is some connection there. But what do you do with that? You have to put your big girl panties on and be a mother and not an individual woman. You're a mother. You have a cap on.
Right.
So you need to focus more on the child. So being huffing and puffing and being bitter and having not emotional maturity to the way that you communicate with that other parent isn't going to be beneficial towards the child.
True.
So I think that you just have to redirect your focus to the child and not be self-centered.
And in addition to being an adult, that's the main thing. Like, we are adults and we're supposed to be, and granted, we as adults have emotions. There's no way we can get away from that. We all have emotions, but like you just said, Vanessa, and you said earlier, Raquel, you have to channel those emotions in a positive way. Even if it burns you to your soul, you have to channel that, because that child is so impressionable in how they grow up that it's going to make a difference. So Raquel, give me some pointers for the public so we can, because you had it figured out, but I also, a couple of times, Jenny, we was gonna burn this mother effer down, and I didn't. So I'm glad you didn't, and you didn't go to jail or anything bad happened, and you're here. Tell us how you got past that emotional part in order to still mature and co-parent.
I'm picking back a little bit on what Vanessa said. It takes more energy to do negative stuff than to do positive.
Right.
I did a lot of self-development on myself during that time, and I had even prior to, but I was more at a younger age. In my early 30s, I was doing a lot of self-development, and I think if it wasn't for that time, then I would have probably geared toward being that spiteful woman. But because I was going to women's group and doing all of this healing and prayer and nature walks and all this, I think that's what really helped me and, turn into the Raquel that I am now.
Okay.
And not because I was a whole completely different person before, where everything was, anything you could think of, it was always a negative thing. A trigger, yeah. And I think that was because of my relationship. I turned into a different person. And that wasn't the person that I knew. I wasn't the Raquel that I knew because of that relationship. It really turned me into very aggressive, a very non-loving, a very completely different person. I wanted to find that person again. I wanted to be, that loving Raquel, that loving, mom that I was, aside from going through postpartum depression and anxiety and all that. As a woman, you go through so many emotions.
Oh, as a man too. That
Yeah.
you know, what I mean, men are in jail because of a woman. They just go
Yes,
crazy.
definitely.
I mean, I'm saying that in a serious way. That we as men, we sometimes really can't hold it, and women too, but especially a man. But I want to ask you in regards to, before I forget, but 2 questions. One, if there's a scenario where a man, or let's just say a man or a woman, doesn't have children at all, and they take on an entire family, do you have any suggestions you can give from that? Because I have a friend who that happened to. She was married. Fortunately, her husband passed away. 4 children. She gets remarried, but her current husband doesn't have any children. That happens sometimes when men and women doesn't have any, but they take on a family. Any suggestion you can give with that? And then the second part of that is, do you think the reaction and how men and women act is based on how they break up? Meaning that if one party cheated, if it's amicable, then we're civil. If it's something different, somebody stole all the money. And I want you to touch on both of those. And I had to get that out before I forgot it because I didn't have anything to write it down on. So I apologize for that, Raquel, but I didn't want to lose that thought. I want to hear both your thoughts on that, on both of those.
I'll go first. So I have a close situation to that. My cousin. So since I was a teen mom, all of our family and our friends are now having kids now. So they all kind of like chime in and ask us our advice or our opinion. So my cousin is one of my best friends. Her now fiance has a son and she didn't have any kids. So I kind of was a co-captain in that, because I needed to navigate that with her. She didn't really know what to do. So she was, am I overreacting? And I'm like, yeah, you kind of are. So she didn't know how to react to the son's mom, and she didn't know like what her place was, if she should take him to school or pick him up. Is that my responsibility or any of that? And I had to tell her, look, if you're going to date somebody that has a kid, you need to make an emotional decision within yourself to put the kid first, as though you're a mom. You don't have maternal instincts yet, but you have to, because that's unfair to the kid for you to be thinking about your partner as just a single man with no kids, but he has a son. So you have to do that. So, I mean, why would you want to date somebody and waste your time? You're dating with intention to be in a long-term relationship. If marriage is what you want to do, some people don't believe in marriage. Some people, just like to just be, live
just free,
cohabitat,
polyamorous, so many different things nowadays.
There's just so many different things. But if you're going to date somebody that has a child, you have to make a logical decision that you are going to affect the child. That's, you're going to influence the child. Your presence being around the child, they're going to look at you as in a maternal way or, a fatherly way. So after I kind of went in on her with that, she understood that, and now they have a better relationship, and she does the pickups and drop-offs and all of that. But in the beginning it wasn't, it was hard. And I just think that it's the way that the relationship dynamic is. If he's asking her for the help, or if he's expecting it of her, then I think that the conversation needs to be had. So I think that it just depends on the relationship. It depends on how much the partner is expecting the other partner to step up and help. Because some people, do cook and clean and do all of that, and some people don't. So it just depends on what your guys'
dynamic is. You have to communicate about it. Right.
And your other question, what was that?
The second one, does it make a difference on how you break up?
Oh, it definitely makes a difference. Definitely makes a difference on how long it takes you to heal from that, because it's a healing process, especially in a relationship. You have to wean yourself off of that. So if it ended in such a abrupt way with cheating, or if they do clear out the bank account or something malice like that, of course you're going to have resentment there, and you're going to have to work through that. And depending on how bad you were burned. But if you are still sharing kids, regardless of how bad you were burned, that person isn't going to disappear.
Right.
Like, well, not my case, but some people,
Right. For the most part, yeah,
for the
that
most
person's
part,
gonna
they
be
stick
there.
around, and you
Yes.
have to figure out a way to, move past it. Like, it doesn't matter how badly you're hurt. You have to figure out how to heal and move on. And like she said that she did nature walks and, mom groups, and you have to outsource whatever
Right.
you have to do to make sure you're good inside, so that way you can have a healthy relationship for your child. I feel like that's all that really matters. It's how much work you're willing to put in. And it takes time though. But
Yeah.
I also have seen a lot of women take the toxic role and just kind of stay there. And
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of
there's
men
a
too,
lot.
but there's a lot of
Yeah.
spiteful women out there. And I just think that, one, you're not doing yourself a service, because all you're doing is creating wrinkles on yourself
And
and
stress. Right.
stress and gray
Right.
hairs with nothing's going to come from it. That
Right.
person isn't going to automatically just wake up and change one day, no
That's
matter how
true.
angry you are. And all you're doing is kind of inflicting that trauma onto your kids. And
Yeah.
they're going to later need to outsource and
Yes.
therapy and nature walks and all that to recover from the BS that you put them through, because you weren't strong enough to heal yourself.
Very true. I mean, at the end of the day, everything that we say or do, well, we're co-parenting, whether if it's in the beginning, stage, middle, everything's for the kids.
Mhm.
And I feel if we do anything other than that, it's just us being selfish.
True.
Why would we want to teach our kids that it's okay to talk all of this ish about their own parent?
Yeah.
That's
At one
true.
point, we were in love with them. We
Right.
allowed ourselves to be with them and
Right.
create this child. As much as we may hate or whatnot,
Resent.
it's like, no, at one point there was love. At one point, we got to the point to create a child, whether if it was one night stand, whether if it was in a relationship, in a marriage. We took that responsibility to be together, and out came a child.
And I
So
think that what you said sometimes it's from love, sometimes it's from lust. It's a one night stand. Sometimes we get too drunk. Whatever the case may be, that makes a difference in that bond. And that's one thing I think that we don't think about when we're being intimate with a person, that there is a possibility, even with protection, that you can create a life. And if I lay down with you outside of my body feeling a certain type of way, will I be okay with having a child with you? And we don't take those things into consideration. You said, Vanessa, okay, well, I didn't give him something that he didn't have. Or in some of our cases, I want to do something to her that she's never had done before. Ta-da, we have a child. And now that we have this child, what do we do? Because it was our intention for something that we thought would keep a person, whether it be a man or woman, and that doesn't always end in a good story. That doesn't always happen in the best way for us. We need to put to the public that you have to think about, even if those emotions are riding high and the alcohol is hitting and things are ready to go, you have to really think in the long run, do I want to raise a child with this person, whether I'm together with them or I'm not? How do I feel about that?
Yeah, and one thing, with my son's dad and I, one thing that I always tell people is he's always been a great father since day one. That I never take away from him.
Wonderful.
Till this day, he's always been a great father. It's just a relationship that didn't work between him and I.
And that's fair.
Yeah. And sometimes I even think, I'm like, dang, well, I feel that he's even a better parent sometimes, because as a mom, I always have that guilt. The mom guilt is real.
Right.
I'm over here trying to build a business. I'm over here trying to do this and do that. Sometimes I'm taking my son with me if I don't have a sitter. And I'm just like, wait, you have to step back and think, I'm doing this because I have a goal. I have a vision of,
that's right,
of where have my son and we could go on a full week of vacation when he's out of school. But it's like the stepping stones of getting there. It's the mom guilt.
Yes.
And him acting out at times and me
they don't always understand.
Breathing. I'm just like, okay, like everything's going to be okay. It's just, it's,
it makes a difference.
One day at a time. But I'm also very thankful that his dad is a great dad. And he's very understanding also of the things that I'm trying to do. But he wasn't always that person. He wasn't always able to understand what I'm doing, or
he didn't see the vision.
Yeah, he didn't see that. But he's always known me to be hustling and side jobs and doing this when we were married. And that hasn't stopped. And my fiance now, he sees that as well, that I'm always I could never just stay still. I'm always doing something. That's just always been in me. And my son knows that too. You know, when he was little, I would take him everywhere with me, whether if it was like at a pop-up or at an event or,
Right.
you know, going with friends. Like he's always been like my sidekick.
And-
And that's something that I want him to grow up and see. Because, you know, growing up, it's, you know, with our culture, it's always like, you have to go to school, get a, you know, good grades, get a good job, get a, you know, good career. It's like, you know, those steps.
The different stepping stones.
And I tell my son, I'm like, yeah, mijo, like you could go to school and, you know, you could go to school, but guess what? There's so much more out there.
Right.
He loves to do YouTube. So I'm like, you know what? If that's what you love, I will support you, but I still need to pay attention to what you're doing. I don't stop him from doing the things that he loves doing, just, you know, parental guidance.
Got you.
There's so many crazies out there, and I've had to block so much stuff on him and for him. But getting back to, you know, between his dad and I, he's always been a great father.
That's good.
Just things between him and I, it just didn't work. And the maturity level, being able to be in that place where we could have the conversations. Oh, hey, you know what? I'm going to be gone this weekend. You know, can you take Jesse? Oh yeah, of course. Like, let's
make the adjustment.
Or you know what? I can't pick up Jesse today, but Albert will pick him up on the way home. Okay, I just have him stop by the house. It's those things where it took us time to get there, but it makes things so much easier.
That's good. Yeah. No, I like it. So a couple of things you said.
Guilt is real.
Yeah.
No, it really is real. I was going to touch on that. Well, a couple of things. Tell your son to holler at me so we can do some YouTubes together because he's very creative. So I'll get my nephew, and you know that young man he's on Abbott Elementary, he's on Snowfall, he's on this NFL commercial coming up. So if they get together and do something, I think that'd be a really good collaboration.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
Absolutely. Then the mom guilt, I'm going to put you in touch with my friend named Jessica. She has, just like you, she owns a food truck called La Brava Cafe. And I interviewed her last week on the podcast, a week before last, and we have a whole segment about mom's guilt. And she said exactly damn near identical to what you just said. That support group, I know you all can help each other, but the mom's guilt is, I didn't realize how effective it is on entrepreneur women or just women who live that life as far as working really hard and doing multiple things. It is something serious.
Something where it's like we take to ourselves, at least for myself.
Right.
Like I don't really show my emotion in that way, but sometimes when I'm by myself, I'm just like, I need like an emotional release. So I'm crying. And it's like, where's like the book? Where's the book where it says what I'm supposed to do?
Exactly. We need a manual.
Give me a manual.
Yes.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what
there is no manual.
No.
There's no manual because every kid is different. Every situation is different.
You got to call Vanessa. You need a support group.
Right?
She'll help you. Like, girl, let's go have some wine or meet me at the Starbucks or something.
Definitely challenging at times, but I know I'm not the only one. And I know
you're not.
All moms out there,
they go through
probably feel the same, have felt the same at one point.
Yeah, I'm going to send you that clip, and maybe you guys can connect and do some business together one day, or maybe I'll sponsor where she can get a facial from you or something. But I hearing that for the first time and her almost crying, and then hearing you say it, I just realized how big that is. And you can't feel bad. It takes a balance, which you're already doing. It's different if you're out malicious partying and I'm going with this guy and I'm out at the Coachella or I'm at the club. That's something to be guilty about, but you are legitimately building a future for your son and for your family, and you are a good mom. So don't feel that way as much as you can. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you.
If I can ease the pain some. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time. I know we started a little bit late, but I really wanted to get you on. I appreciate everything you said, and it just really gives me a comforting perspective, the level of maturity, especially Vanessa, you saying being a young mom and becoming an adult, and Raquel wanting to burn the house down, but having a support group, but just all these different emotions that we go through as men and women. You all come full circle and love your families and love your partners and have these relationship with your partner's exes, and being able to really keep the child in mind, whether it be a young child, a young adult, or an adult, keep them in mind. It just means the world. People will be able to resonate, hopefully learn from this process.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you so much. I want
Thank you.
Absolutely. really thank you for your time.
All right.
Really quickly, Raquel, give a shout out to your business before we go.
We're in the same industry. My
Oh,
business
really?
as well. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So both of you guys do the facial and estheticians?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm gonna put both your socials on there. Raquel supports and says you do the same thing. Then I'm already a fan. Yeah, you have options, right? You can rotate every 2 weeks. You can go see Raquel, then Vanessa, and back and forth. Whatever you want to do that helps the business.
We're always supporting one another. Like it's, I mean, there's so many out there. There's so many people out there.
I think that's the one thing that I admire so much about Raquel and just a lot of ladies in this industry. They're, we elevate each other. We send each other business. We don't damper because we do the same thing. Like we really collaborate well. So
and we learn from one another too.
Yeah.
Like, there's always something new to be learning in the industry.
Okay. Well, good. I'm happy to hear it. That makes me feel that brings my heart joy. And I really, really will pray that your business continues to succeed and you get more clients. And I'm going to try to send as many people your way as possible.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You all have a wonderful evening and thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.